Hey guys. So, as I promised, here's my birth story. It's taken me a little while to get to it just because I'm a new mom and I'm trying to figure out how to take care of my child, take care of myself, still recover and heal and everything, because I did have to have a C-section. So, I will be telling you right now how that all came to a head, basically. So, first of all, I'm trying to think about the date, but when I was 38 weeks, I was at the doctor's office and I was feeling very, very discouraged and very, very upset about my pregnancy because I was really, really uncomfortable, more uncomfortable than normal because I had polyhydramnios. And for those of you who don't know what that is, it basically just means you have too much fluid in your body, like where the baby's at. So that meant I had extra weight than like the normal pregnant woman would at 38 weeks and beyond and all that, just throughout the whole pregnancy essentially. And I was just telling her, like, I don't know what we can do, but I want to do it. And my doctor was thinking, like, okay, so are you thinking like induction? Are you thinking like going into it naturally? Are you thinking scheduling a C-section? Like, what's on your mind? I said, well, I don't really want to do a C-section unless I absolutely have to, and I said, and I don't know if I'm going to ever go into go into labor naturally. So I don't know what to do. I really don't. I said, but if I had to choose, I would choose an early induction at 39 weeks. So she said, okay, so then here's what we're going to do. We're going to get a 39 week growth scan, and then we'll decide from there. So I said, okay, cool, let's go get it done, right now. And she goes, no, honey. She goes, I mean, like, next week, and I said, oh, yeah, of course, pregnancy brain popped in right there. So anyway, so that whole week, till my next appointment that following Monday, I was just really just like distraught and just like anxious and just like, oh my gosh, what is my midwife gonna say? Because I saw my doctor, and because my doctor is so like popular and everything, I guess they have like a midwife that like teams up with the doctor, or is like kind of like their cohorts kind of, I guess, in a way. And yeah, so anyway, I saw my doctor's like midwife that like is kind of like with her. So anyway, I started to see her, the midwife, way more than I saw the doctor. And the midwife looked at, the growth ultrasound that next week after we got it done. And she said, okay, so you haven't grown in your fluid in like a couple weeks, so that looks good. But as far as like delivery goes, do you want to be induced? Do you want to have a C-section? Or do you want to try to go naturally? I said, to be honest with you, I'm extremely uncomfortable, so I want to do a 39-week induction. So she said, okay, perfect, we'll do that. I will start the paperwork. So she did. This was on Monday, the 22nd of April. And so I was just ready. Like, I just wanted so badly to just get my baby out because I was not comfortable at all. So here is what happened next that absolutely threw me for a loop. So they told me, they're like, okay, so we're going to start the paperwork and everything, just like my midwife was saying, and that they'd give me a call as soon as they knew what time I was going to be induced and, what day, and just all the information like that. So fast forward a couple of days. It's Wednesday the 24th, and it was field day at my work, and I work at a junior high, which, was already difficult enough, but we had a water field day. So you can imagine how that was. Yeah, real fun. So anyway, my doctor's office was trying to get a hold of me, and they were trying to tell me when I was going to be induced, but I didn't know that. Like I just saw that they called, and I was like, oh crap, they're probably going to tell me about my induction and everything. So I tried to call them a couple times, and it didn't work, and we just kept playing phone tag and everything. So they just sent me a message on the message patient portal, and I look, and it said, you're going to be induced at this hospital at 4:20, like on 4/24, 10 p.m. So I was like, wait a minute, is that today? And so I go and like look at my calendar, and I'm like, oh yeah, that is today. Like tonight I'm going to be induced. Like I had no words for that, because when I tell you that I was just so like done with everything, as far as, carrying around all the extra weight while being pregnant and everything, it just threw me for a loop when they said that. I was just thinking like, oh my gosh, my baby's finally going to be here. I'm going to get to meet my son. I'm so ready for this. Holy crap. I did not know how to feel. So anyway, it was a short day, because we have short days on Wednesdays. And, my mom and I, we leave right at, 12:30, which is the time that the kids get out. And we go home. I'm sure I have everything packed, and they told me to call an hour beforehand to see, like, if I needed to still come at 10, or if I needed to come a little bit later or anything like that. So they were like, okay, I'll just call at 9, and then they want you at 10, they'll let you know. So I said, okay, cool, perfect. And so, up until about 9 o'clock, I was just like in this frenzy of like, oh my gosh, do I have everything? Just trying to figure out what the heck I was gonna need. Like I really was on like this like shock type mode, where I was just like really like unsure of how to handle things, I guess. So anyway, fast forward to 9 p.m. I had eaten so much good food that day, and and just before I called, it all like came up from nervousness, I guess, which was a good thing, because you don't want food in your stomach whenever you're going into labor. It's not a pretty mix, so it's a good thing. And I called at 9, after all that, and they told me, yeah, just come in at 10, but go through the emergency room door. So I did. I get there, I check in, and I get my room and everything set up. And so I'm just like laying there, and my parents are there, and they're like just chilling and hanging out with me, and so is my husband. And probably at about a little after midnight, like after we got there, so that's like Thursday morning, like midnight of Thursday, the 25th. They start me on cervical ripening, and it was just like pills, and they gave me, I think it was 3 doses, might have been 2 doses. But what I had to do is I had to take the pills, rest for a couple hours, walk for 30 minutes, rest another couple hours, and then they would give me another dose, and then I would have to, rest for a couple more hours, and then walk for 30 more minutes, and then rest for another couple hours. So like overall, it was like a whole 6 to 8 hour process to ripen my cervix. And it worked pretty well. It got me to open up just a little bit. So yeah. And excuse me. And then I, kind of like got some sleep after everything was over. And when I woke up, I had a new nurse. And she was telling me, like, hey, we're going to start you on Pitocin at noon. So I said, okay, cool. So they started me on Pitocin at noon. And I was just I really wasn't even, like, feeling anything, to be honest with you. Like, Pitocin did not affect me in, like, a negative way at all. I could definitely feel the contractions getting, like, stronger and everything. But to me, they didn't hurt. Like, labor didn't hurt for me. It just felt like a bunch of pressure, which is extremely uncomfortable and, all that. But at the same time, I'd rather just feel pressure than feel actual hurt. So they had me on Pitocin. Going into the next day, but I'll talk about a few things in between, like the start and finish of being on the Pitocin. So they started me at noon on Thursday, and it was not bad, but as the night and the day went on and on and on and on, they got a little bit stronger. And, my parents were in and out, and Aaron was, like, in and out of the, my room and everything. So I was laboring for, like, literally all day Thursday, except for maybe, like, 30 minutes in the very beginning of the day, if we're counting midnight as the beginning of the day. And it didn't really hurt. Like, the nurse was telling me, like, a lot of people stop between, like, 8 to 10, like 12 is, like, the maximum, though. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, that like just was just like, okay, that's gonna be bad if I, get to that point and I can't handle it anymore. But once they got to, like, 8, it was bad, but it wasn't, like, super duper bad. Like, it was just kind of like, okay, yeah, that hurts a little bit, but that's more pressure than anything. So then I fell asleep for I think it was, like, maybe, like, 3 hours or something like that. And they upped it every 30 minutes. Like, 1 to 2 was, like, 30-minute interval and stuff like that. So anyway, I wake up at midnight, so, like, the start of Friday morning, and my water breaks. It wakes me up. So I'm, like, laying there, and then I just felt like a trickle for me to, that was the feeling that I had when my water broke. And I was like, okay. Phoned my nurse, and I said, hey, my water broke. So, what are we going to do? So she's like, okay, I'll be right there. So I was like, all right. And so she checked, and she goes, yup, it broke. And I was like, okay. So she just put a towel, like, there just to keep everything together. And I look over, and I said, hey, what level am I on? She goes, oh, you're on 15 right now. And I was like, 15? Okay. And I guess my max was 16. So I was like, okay, all right, can't go any higher than 16, personally, for my body. And the highest you can go on Pitocin is 20. So I really wasn't far from the top. So 15 really kind of started the pain that I actually like was feeling, like, real pain. And I really wasn't hurting that bad, but it, like, started to feel like the pain that I was expecting, So then they kick it up to 16, and about 1:30-ish, I ended up getting an epidural because the pain was just too much for me to handle at that point. Like, I told myself, I said, you know what? I can already see where this is going to go. This is going to hurt, quite a bit, and I don't think I can take very much more. I know my pain tolerance. I know myself. So let's get the epidural. So I got it, and it didn't hurt when I got the epidural. It really honestly didn't. So I was like, okay, cool. It was like, trying to think about how to describe it. Like, it was just like a little, like, prick, you know, like, just like a quick little prick, and that was it. And I didn't necessarily feel like all that bad, you know, other than just that little quick prick, like that. And funny thing is, so my baby was on the right side of me. So after I got the epidural and everything, my right side wasn't numbing the way my left side was. So I guess he was laying on some nerves on my right side. And, you know, I couldn't necessarily lay on my right side because it hurt a lot to lay there because that's where my baby was. So my left leg was like completely numb. I didn't feel a thing, you know, but my right leg, yeah, no, it was like numb, but it was like halfway numb. So I had to like try and lay on my right side to get it to go in there. And I think I had to have a couple different doses of the epidural itself, like just like it was like a topper kind of. And I finally felt, you know, the relief and everything. So then they like took me off for like an hour or two. Like they started it over at 1, then they let it kind of just go up and up and up and up again at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And then probably about, I want to say like, probably about like 11 or 12, they like took the monitors off of me. They took me off the Pitocin as well. Like, it just gave my body a little bit of a break from it. And then they started me back on right after, like about like an hour or so of not having it on. And then they were like, okay, so we're gonna keep going up and, you know, hoping that your body dilates and everything, you know, because we gave it a rest and now your body's like a little bit rejuvenated. So they put me back on and doesn't work. My body will not dilate. My body would not respond to the Pitocin at all. And so they called my doctor, and my doctor, you know, was like, okay, so we'll just have to do a C-section because I'm not going to have her suffer any more than she already has. So they took me in for my C-section at 4:19, and then I had him by like 5:09. Yeah, so he was born at 5:09 p.m. He was 8 pounds, 2 ounces, and 19 inches long. And when he first came out, he had fluid here, and he had fluid here. And it's because I had a C-section. If he were to come out of my birthing canal, that fluid would have gone away. That fluid would have like just compressed and just been released and everything. But that's not what happened. Because what had happened was he tried to come out like face up, and it didn't work. He actually, like, kind of where I have the zit right here, that's like where he nicked his face on my pubic bone. Like, he was trying to push through that way, but it didn't work. Like, he didn't fit in my birth canal because of how big his head is, I guess. So he tried to flip over and like do it again, but it like didn't work either way he did it. So anyway, yeah. And they had to take him almost immediately from me. Like, they got him out. I heard him crying. I heard him kind of squeaking a little bit because he had a lot of fluid still in his lungs. Because again, he didn't go through the birthing canal. And then they, you know, they weighed him. They cleaned him up. And then they laid his head on my shoulder, you know, and brought Aaron over. and I got to meet him, and, and I cried a little bit, and it was a precious, precious moment. Like, it was so beautiful. And, one of the nurses, like, took a picture of us, and I posted that picture. And then one of the ladies came over to me, like, by my head as I'm getting sewn up. She's like, so your baby has low scores, and I forget what it's called. They're like Afgard scores or something like that. The first time he got an 8, and then the second time he got a 4, or like if there was, I think if it was like 2 tests, he got a 4 and an 8 though, but either way, it worried them. So the lady came over by me, and she was one of the nursery nurses, and she goes, hey, so your baby is having issues with his blood sugar. He is not scoring very awesome, so we have to take him to the nursery. And she told me it's kind of like the NICU, except you can go in and visit him. So I was like, okay, all right, that's fine. My baby needs help, so go for it. And so I only saw my baby for I think probably maybe 2 minutes before they took him away, and sewed me up and took me back over to my room and everything. And I couldn't go and see him unless I could walk over there to go see him, because I guess the policy was just like, you have to walk over there to go see it. You can't be wheeled over in a wheelchair. And so anyway, I didn't get to spend the majority of the first 24 hours of his life with him, because he was in the nursery, and I couldn't get up enough to go and see him. After I had a few doses of my pain medication, I was able to walk over and go see him and everything. And that night, he was able to, probably a little over 24 hours into his life, he got to come and stay with me in the room and everything, and I got to bond with him and get to know him a little bit. And I went over to the nursery and saw him too before he was actually put back in our room, or not put back, put into our room. And it was really amazing, that my body could do that. It's been a little over a week since I've had my C-section and everything. And it's been quite the journey with him so far. He's a really good baby. He loves cuddling and eating. He is an aggressive eater, but he has a tongue tie, and we found that out at his appointment yesterday. So found out why he's not latching the way he needs to. So that was awesome to learn that, so that I was like, okay, so it's not me, and it's not necessarily him either, but it's just the combination. So yeah, that is how my son, Landon Jax Leon Louthen, was born.